Welcome to the podcast that has earned the distinction as one of the best in marketing research. This is Research Business Daily Report. And if you go to RBDR's exclusive community at the crowdfunding platform, patreon.com/RBDR, you can lend your support to the continuation of this series. I'm Bob Lederer, for more than 25 years, the respected voice in market research. We welcome you to Market Research in the COVID-19 Era, a special series here on RBDR that we debuted back on March 15th. Today, we hit you with episode number 99. Now, in his last measurement minute for RBDR last Thursday, Gary Angel of Digital Mortar discussed three considerations that he felt, if they had been implemented, could have alleviated several perturbing curbside pickup problems that he encountered during the coronavirus. Gary spelled out doing measurement as the first of the three essential elements to help fix the problems at the box store where he had expected flawless curbside pickup. Gary?
In my last minute, I talked about the three keys to improving people measurement processes in your enterprise. Key number one, measure them. You can't improve what you don't measure. Key number two, have an overflow strategy. People processes are really vulnerable to getting bogged down and getting constrained by that most limited of resources, people. So have a strategy for when that happens. Know what to do when a process gets behind. Key number three, embed communications inside the process. One of the biggest casualties when processes do get behind is customer communications, and that's usually the last thing that you want to suffer. In today's minute, I'm going to talk about the first of those things, the technologies that enable you to actually measure how people processes are getting executed. A couple of years ago, these technologies really didn't exist, at least in a form that was good enough to use. But these days, there are several really good alternative technologies that will help you measure in detail how people processes are getting executed. The first, and probably the most common, is video camera. Video camera provides super fine-grained, highly detailed recreations of how exactly a process got executed. Cameras record the scene in 30 frames per second. They're looking at individuals. They're allowing you to really understand how a process got executed and exactly where somebody was at each specific moment in time. That's great, but there are a couple disadvantages to using cameras for people process measurement. Disadvantage number one is that a lot of back offices and floors are crowded environments. There are conveyor belts, there are boxes, there are shelves. If the camera loses track of the person visually, if it doesn't have line of sight, it can't measure that person. It's just that simple. Camera is a line of sight technology, and if the camera can't see the person, the camera can't measure the process. Drawback number two is that cameras aren't great for attaching an individual name to an individual. The camera sees the person, but it doesn't know who it is. There's no specific identifier for that person attached in a camera level data feed. So if you need to understand exactly what John or Sharon was doing as opposed to how a task was getting executed, camera may not be the ideal solution. The second technology to consider is Bluetooth badging. Bluetooth badges are small, very lightweight, easily clipped to a lanyard devices that ping out every second or even more frequently. Those signals that they ping out are picked up by sensors. Those sensors use that signal, triangulate, and figure out exactly where the person is. Bluetooth badging is a really robust solution. It can work in almost any environment, no matter how obstructed or no matter how large, and it's pretty inexpensive to deploy. So why wouldn't you always use Bluetooth badging? Well, it doesn't give you the same level of fine-grained detail that camera-based tracking does. Bluetooth badging just doesn't get you down to the 1 or 2 foot level on the floor. You can understand where someone is and how long they're spending in relatively small sections, but if you need really fine-grained detail to understand what's happening in a process, Bluetooth badging may not be the solution. The third technology that you might want to consider is mobile devices. Mobile devices turn out to be a really nice platform for geolocation. They have a lot of the same characteristics as Bluetooth badging, but if your employees already carry a phone or an Android or iOS tablet as part of their job, then A, you don't have to give them anything different. There's no change in operations. You don't have to buy the Bluetooth badges. And I think the most important aspect of mobile tagging is that if you add geolocation to the mobile devices, you can actually tie the two data streams together. what they're doing with the device from a digital perspective with where they were on the floor when they were doing it. The integration of those two data streams is something that you can't get out of any of the other technologies. So why wouldn't you always just use mobile devices? Well, you probably would use mobile devices if your employees already carry them. But if they don't, that's a significant change in operational procedures. And mobile devices, even the least expensive ones, are a lot more expensive than Bluetooth badges. Bottom line, no matter which of these technologies you pick, you're going to dramatically upgrade your ability to understand how processes, people-based processes in your enterprise are actually being done. That's incredibly powerful, and it provides you with a lot of opportunities to tackle the next two problems that I'm going to talk about in the Measurement Minute. Thanks for listening.
That wraps up today's Research Business Daily Report. If you make it a habit to watch RBDR, well, we want to thank you. And we also assume that because you do watch, that you're finding our video series to be time well spent. So please never hesitate to recommend any of our videos to friends and peers. And we hope that you'll consider becoming a Patreon supporter of RBDR. Speaking of which, we want to thank our two newest Patreon contributors, Matt Valley and William Leach. You too can become a sponsor by visiting patreon.com/RBDR. We'll wait for you to do that, and until then, have a great research day, and we'll see you tomorrow with episode number 100 and the wrap-up of this market research in the coronavirus series. Until then, please stay safe.